Christian values represents stewardship and freedom and biblical-based society. It doesn't mean Christian nationalism doesn't mean everybody has to be a Christian,
right,
or you have to leave. That's not what it means. But it gives individual rights and liberty to allow people to be believers without any sense of you have to shut your building down.
We're going to talk about something that's really kind of, it's connected to Revival Radio and Revival in America, but it's also connected to Flashpoint. So we're going to this is Flash Revival.
We're going to bridge it.
It's a Revival Flash. So let's talk about a term that I've been called this in the secular media. I think it was Newsweek was the first one to call me a Christian nationalist. Ooh. And I thought, at the time, it's been a year or so ago, I thought, well, I'm a Christian and I love America. Man, that's good. I am a nationalist. Then I found out that's not what they don't. That's not a good thing. Is what they're saying.
What do they want? What are they saying it is?
Well, what they're comparing it to is Adolf Hitler.
Really?
Because Hitler's so far right. He was a nationalist. So they're demonizing the Christian nationalists as if you're going to create some sort of militant religion that everybody in the world must adhere to.
You mean like Iran?
Yes.
Or Saudi Arabia?
Yeah. So what do you think? How do we handle Christian nationalism? Because there's people out there preaching on it, Greg.
Positively or negatively?
Preaching that you shouldn't be a Christian nationalist, or they're mislabeling what they think Christian nationalism is. Either they think it's a good thing, or they think, you standing up for what you believe in is nationalism, so therefore it's not good. What do you think?
Well, we got to go to the Bible, right? So the biblical foundation is, when did nations begin? I'm going to submit that they began at the Tower of Babel. Because remember, everybody was in unity and one accord. God said, let's go see this thing because nothing will be impossible to them. And he confounded the languages, and theologians tell us about 70 different nations came out of that right then. So if that's the case, God started nations.
So nations are not a bad thing, according to Scripture.
Well, if that's when it started, and I believe it is.
Well, I don't think that's the first time we see that in there.
Is he started it. Now, with the nation of Israel, let's flash forward a long ways, he set the boundaries of the nation of Israel. I mean, he set their borders and described it. And so if I've got God defining them as a nation and where they're going to live and where their land is and their borders, I got case 2 of God involved with nations. And then he sent the Great Commission Jesus gives us. He goes, Jerusalem, so that's capital city, Judea, Samaria, and uttermost parts of the earth. So once again, we're going to the nations again. So I'm kind of seeing there's a biblical trend for nations.
Well, sure. Abraham, like you said, you touched on that. Abraham in Genesis, right there in Genesis.
Yeah. Go to a land I'll show you.
Go to a land I'll show you. And
place my name there.
From the Nile River to the Euphrates River. That's a big chunk of land.
And so he went, and later a nation will be established from him. And so our founders came here to establish a land free from tyranny where they could worship God. That was the main thing. So all of these things, they're not based upon fascism that Hitler was. I mean, that's not, he wanted pride in Germany again. They had been decimated by the previous war. I mean, their inflation rate was astronomical, the Weimar Republic. Now, that's what a bad leader can do, but imagine what a good leader could do with nationalism or even Christian nationalism. I mean, if Hitler can do that, bad guy, imagine what a good guy can do.
Yeah, so, but let's kind of look back. Even nations were based, until America, ethnicities is kind of where the drawing line when it came to nations until America.
Which goes back to Babel because they all speak the same language.
That's right. So now we've got a nation based on ideas, that idea of freedom. When we left England and came over here and started a nation that's free, we have Christians. This is where I get frustrated. I have to be careful because I get frustrated at people.
That's okay. I'm here.
But you're here to help me, talk me down, because people get immediately confused and think, is it good or it's bad? Maybe I shouldn't talk about being a Christian, or maybe I should. Maybe I don't know what to do, so I just won't do anything. And so people lock up. And I understand, because the liberal side of America is trying to force something, and it's like you're getting hit several times in a row, and you're like, that's not what I meant. I'm a good guy, not a bad guy. And so you just lock up. So Americans have to understand, and especially Christians have to understand. And this is, I think, where Americans are in a different place than they've ever been certainly in our lifetimes, where they're having to understand, what are my roots? Even with our children's education, how come our kids are being taught crazy stuff and going to universities getting taught even crazier stuff? How did that happen? Most of us are kind of rocked back on our heels going, I thought it was about reading, writing, and arithmetic, and they're teaching, America's bad, and slavery with the 1619 Project and all this stuff that's bogus, and this generation's believing it. So, which points full circle back to Christian nationalism, and they say, well, you're being crazy because you're trying to convert everybody to one theocracy, and your idea is to control the world. And that's not the case, obviously. But how do we combat this, Greg? How do we? Because it sounds good, but it's bad in the way they're presenting it.
Right. Well, they don't want us to have American exceptionalism. Now,
and what is American exceptionalism?
That because of America, and I would submit to you it's because of our covenant that Washington made and our founding fathers, and they based our Constitution on Scripture. Not that we're a theocracy. They never wanted a theocracy, but all religions could worship here without any kind of coercion or the government shutting you down. There's no Church of America. Okay, so American exceptionalism, think about it for a second. George Washington went from colony to colony in the States, fought his battles. I mean, they had gunpowder and war, so that had changed. But he moved around exactly the way Jesus moved around. He either rode a horse, rode in a wagon, or walked. Mm-hmm. There's no indoor plumbing. There's no electricity, no lights, none of that. I mean, it was very much like first century still.
Sure.
In the time of Christ. So what changed? When we became free and we liberated people to follow their dream, that you weren't in a caste system, that you had to be born in the right families or have the right this or the right that. The tribalism,
right,
if you will, was gone. Then America expanded to where now we fly on airplanes, we have trains, we have automobiles, electricity, running water. All of these things, these modern things, happened because this country was free. That's why we're exceptional.
Yeah.
Right there. We changed human history by some 5,000 years or more just by a group of people being able to be free and follow their ambition and their dream and not have a government hinder them. This is what they're trying to do. Communism wants tribalism. They want black against white, male against female. They want you divided, not united.
Why do they want that?
Because you can control. You can pit one group against the other. They can say that this group is oppressing that group.
Right.
And that's tribalism. That's contrary to American nationalism. So I would rather have American nationalism with some dangers that would go with that, Christian nationalism, rather than tribalism and Marxism. And that's really what fascism and Marxism was all about,
right,
with the Soviet Union, and they were both left of right.
Yeah, so
we
have center. We always, Flashpoint, we talk about being to the right of center, and Nazism was to the right of communism.
Yes, but to the left of capitalism.
Yeah, so there was an extreme there, and so we're called extremists. Just because we have a biblical worldview that labels you as an extremist. So these understanding that we must, as Brother Copeland would say, we must understand our role as believers. We are the salt of the earth, right?
Yes.
We're the salt.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean there isn't some unsalty people out there. There's some people that need us. So I think we really get to a place, Greg, where I think we've been lulled because of the freedom and the prosperity that's come to us as a nation. We've been lulled to sleep, and that lulling to sleep has let us believe this is the norm. We shouldn't have any issues. I should be able to do what I want to do, flow where I want to flow.
Well, it's because we think we did that.
My truth is my truth. Yeah, and it's because we think we did that. So then suddenly we're dealt with an issue that's not comfortable. We panic. Whereas our as you were talking about, George Washington riding a horse and everything like that in that era. Now we're upset if our car's air conditioner doesn't work. Right. So why all the attack back on freedom? On America?
Because there's a group of people that want us to go back to a Babel type system. And Babel was socialism. Sorry. It was one centralized form of government apart from God, because we can't trust him. Remember, he flooded us.
Yeah.
We can't trust what he's going to do again. And so it became a centralized power apart from God, and that's what they want to do. They want to have a utopian society in the world, one world government, where we're all alike, and it's Antichrist. And that's what we're really building up to. And so when you have Christian nationalism, you fly in the face of ruling elites. Ruling elites don't want God to interfere with their lifestyle or with any other thing. And so they have to have tribalism. They have to have divide us in Republican and Democrat and black and white, Hispanic, and you are African American or you are Mexican American. No, we've lost that. We're all American. That's what we used to be.
Sure.
World War II, this country came together, and that's when the big boom happened with prosperity and blessing after World War II. You remember 9/11. Do you remember 9/12? 9/12, man, everybody was ready to hear from God. They were ready to go to their churches. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm saying this because I was a pastor in California at the time. We weren't ready.
Right.
I wasn't ready. I had people show up at my church on 9/12 in the middle of the week. I forgot what day that was now. But people showed up in my church, and they just wanted to go in there and sit and pray, and they wanted to light a candle. And these are people that had never, didn't go to church. And I was scrambling. The secretary, do we open the doors? And I'm like, oh, yeah, let's open the doors. So I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity for revival in San Diego, and I wasn't ready for it. And I heard from other people, well, we went to this other church and this other one, and they were closed. The doors were closed. Well, everybody stayed home on 9/12, but people were trying to get in churches. And so there's a moment that was on me, and I've repented of it, totally forgiven of it. But e pluribus unum is on our out of many one. And so it's a revival of getting us one in America again, but not on our merits or on our government. Our government can't be the leader. Christian values represents stewardship and freedom and biblical-based society. It doesn't mean Christian nationalism doesn't mean everybody has to be a Christian, or you have to leave. That's not what it means. But it gives individual rights and liberty to allow people to be believers without any sense of you have to shut your building down. I don't know any church that would go after and march in the streets and burn and riot a gay community or gay businesses or anything like that, like they've done, or sue or anything else. That's not what it means. And that's what they want to do. They want to silence and cut down. That's not what Christian nationalism does. Christian nationalism is responsibility and stewardship to our land.
You remember when, before Reagan was elected president, there was a lack of patriotism in America.
Big time.
We were coming off, still reeling from a failure in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. We were not sure that what we had in America, were we really a superpower? And he brought back patriotism, even in his campaign, that it was okay to like America. And people started flying their flags again. Now you fast forward a few years, like him or not, Donald Trump did the same thing. Suddenly flying your flag was, he was talking about patriotism, had this so it seems that there's always this cycle of patriotism. It gets beat up and bashed and people take their flags down, then it comes back around. But when it's connected to spiritual things, when it's connected to the Bible, that's when things get dicey, because people don't, people have a way of not accepting the Word, not accepting the Bible, and what we get. But we have to understand patriotism and the Word are connected. How so?
Because our patriotism in our Constitution was taken from the Bible. Our three branches of government are from the book. God our lawgiver, God our judge, and God our sovereign, our king. So that's where we got our three branches of government, was from the Bible. So because it comes from there, that's the measuring stick for that.